So I don't think this is the first time I've talked about dependency and exploitation. Like I'm in this, I still, which is really circular. It's like a really circular discussion to be in a situation where I'm completely deprived of my privacy, and I ask over and over again for someone to help put a stop to it, and nobody responds to this. Or there's some sort of movement from people who I'm so uncomfortable with already that I'm like, yeah, whatever it is, whatever the strings are that are attached to your offer, or whatever the hell this is, it's not something that I know that I'm going to be able to deal with. And also, you've just been too offensive for me to ever have anything to do with you, really, is one thing. So, but I feel like, I have been saying this like literally just for years and years and years. I've definitely been saying it. No, I think I've been saying it the whole time. I mean, I think I've been saying it the whole time since I've moved into the first apartment that had cameras in it. I was like, well, I can't start my life like this. And that was 10 years ago. I was like, I can't have normal relationships. I can't have any kind of social life. I can't like live a normal life at all with cameras in my apartment. I mean, that's a really basic understanding that people just seem to continually avoid understanding it or having any concern for it. To be completely deprived of having any kind of privacy and then have people blame you when you are susceptible to people who are, make some sort of overture to you. It's really a really vicious thing to do. So, and people really don't want to think about that. I mean, it's this automatic assumption that glamour and people being good looking, makes is somehow eradicates the cruelty of the situation and makes me the bad guy. It just seems to be like an assumption people just aren't even questioning. I don't even know if they know that they're thinking it. But I feel like it's a cycle. I don't really know how to break the cycle. I think if people are really determined that they're not going to help me get the cameras out of my place, then I'm not sure. I mean, because it's, people are not thinking about this the way that I'm experiencing it. When you feel like dropping in to my phone or my house, you can. And then you're like, oh, she seems like she's doing okay, or she's not doing okay. And if she's like obviously demonstrably not doing okay, then maybe I should say something nicer, or maybe I'll just go away and come back later, or maybe I'll just try to deny it. But nobody actually says, I don't want to get the fucking cameras out of her apartment and tell everybody the truth about what's going on, right? So people just come in, and it's like you don't really understand. People are refusing to actually, for actors, especially for actors, and a business that is like, about trying to understand how other people feel. You're really, really very obstinate about refusing to understand what it would be like to live like this, right? But I feel like, all right, well, since everyone is going to continue, it seems that there's a definite decision here for people to continue to refuse to understand how I'm feeling, refuse to understand what this would be like. And it's so grotesque because these also are people, so many of them who can, who like have a bad day and they're like, let's fly to the other side of the world for a vacation, because I'm having a bad day. To have so much mobility in your own lives and then to treat me as if being restricted to the life that I'm living, is somehow is my fault and something to continue because it's my fault, and then to also blame me for not having other options for my social life is really fucked up. And then people just don't want to think about it that way. They're just sitting there waiting for something that affects them personally to be like, oh, you're a bad person and you're a man stealer and you're this or you're that. So far, I have yet to steal a single man. You know what I'm saying? So it's like I'm made responsible for both sides of this. On the one side of it, there's the guy who shows up, and I just can't even believe Tom Holland actually pretended to care about this. And here we are 2 years later, and he's not only has done nothing, but has reverted to being just a complete and total asshole, right? So on the one side, there's always the side. It seems like there's the two sides of it. Plus everybody in the chorus. It's like the guy shows up. He wants my attention. I'm like, I'm isolated. isolated, and whoever the last person was who like was fucking horrible to me, I'm feeling bad about that. He shows up, he acts like he's going to be, doesn't necessarily act like he's going to be nicer, sometimes does, and then it's just like, and then we go through this whole song and dance about it while the girlfriend freaks out. Then if I don't go out with him, he's mad. Or not necessarily mad, because I don't think people really want that. I mean, objectively, anyone can understand that they're already with women who are much better looking, and it's a much easier situation to be in. But, irritated by my criticisms or otherwise decided just to give me a rough time. Plus, the woman the whole time has been pissed off and upset. That gets taken out on me. I don't know what kind of conversations they have with each other, but they're obviously, you're going to be more partial to being, kinder to the person that you want to remain in a relationship with than you are to the person whom you perceive as being the threat, even though it's the behavior of your actual partner that is continuing to create an issue. So, and then there's all the, the peanut gallery, the chorus of people who want to make a big deal out of every single situation. And meanwhile, I'm like, can I get the cameras out of my house? Can I get the cameras out of my house? Can I get the cameras out of my house? And everybody wants to act like that's not the main issue, but that is the main issue. So, if everybody's going to continue to live in denial about that, I still have to get through my 24 hours at a time. And it's like, I think and again, the idea that I'm supposed to disavow having an interest in the physical side of a relationship. I have to somehow become more and more nun-like, to somehow, quote, prove that people who have been sexually abusing me for years don't have anything to, like, to point to in terms of my, quote, deserving it, while women are out there singing about whatever the fuck it is, filming sex scenes, wearing whatever the hell they want. It's just, the whole thing is completely outrageous. But also, it's been really gross also to have people reduce me to, a biological function, which for me was really no big deal. You're the ones who have blown it up to be something that's like something that encompasses my entire personality. From, the most puerile person to someone like Emma Thompson, who's actually, she's over 60 and she's like has been made a dame of the British Empire and all this other bullshit, trying to act like I'm just some low class loser who, is like completely fulfilled by an orgasm. It's like, no, you really got that backwards. You're the ones who have turned something that was really no big deal for me, a few minutes out of my day, into the sum total of my personality, while denying my humanity, completely dehumanizing me and eradicating from me, in terms of your perception of me, the idea that people of the other gender can be, are something that to have relationships with people of the other gender is not just a route to orgasm. For me, I don't know how other women do dating, but for me, it's always been sort of the last thing to worry about in terms of just being able to have one. I see that this industry operates that way. This industry is so fucked up that it has always, as far as I know, treated it like, some like, oh, the guy is like, the most incredibly intelligent guy on the fucking planet. It's like, yeah, he's someone who's he has the intelligence of a vibrator. That's which I've noticed. Right? This is like not even to mention the complete degradation of the women's movement by popular culture, like by popular culture as it has been enforced, with all the millions and millions of depictions of people having sex where it's pretty unrealistic in terms of the woman having an orgasm from just immediately, especially with someone you don't know, from just intercourse. It's like, well, it's the idea. And so the industry has built up the idea that female orgasm is like this really, both very funny and something that's still something that belongs to the guy, and something that he dispenses kind of like a bonus, like a bonus for being like a good person or whatever, or whatever the fuck it is. Or it's so the last thing in the world would be for men and women, it seems, is to have it be reduced to something where it's like, this is really no big fucking deal. I don't know why you made a big deal out of it. There doesn't need to be any kind of particular emotion attached to it. It only takes a few minutes, if that, and it's got nothing to do with your relationship or your mood or any of that bullshit. right? It makes all the women feel like all this whatever the fuck that very fucked up mindset is for women, that they, they've been trained to believe they need, hours and hours of closeness and intimacy and all this other bullshit, and being told this and being told that, and I have to be really comfortable. I was like, no, really, it's doesn't, you don't need any of that shit. You really don't need any of that shit. Oh, it takes 20 minutes. Yeah, I'm sorry if that's how you feel. But there seems to be a lot attached to it, right? And then for guys, it's like taking their secret weapon away. It's like taking away their secret weapon. I got this weapon for you, baby. It's like, well, you're never gonna find another man. I'm like, well, actually, it's about I think it's different. It's to say that if you're with someone and they turn out to be someone who is like totally like, totally uninterested in the experience, the experience that you're having, whether it's a general experience or the specific experience, that's kind of like not that much fun to be with somebody who's like that. But for this to be, like built up into being something like a guy who has some idea is like, a keeper. A keeper no matter what is fucking ridiculous. It's absolutely fucking ridiculous. So, but I feel like the idea that that's how I've been treated. I've been treated like this is the only thing I'm interested in. No, it actually seems to be the only thing that you're interested in, and also the only thing that you are perhaps capable of, right? In terms of thinking that you're going to relate to me, which makes you capable if you're of relating to like most of the female population, if that's the only thing you have to offer, right? It's like I just can't even say. But I think I would say, considering how things are have gotten to be, and it's not that I haven't talked about this before, but I would say, there's something to the idea that there has been definitely inappropriate. It's definitely something that's inappropriate in terms of my ongoing involvement in other people's relationships. I think it seems to be that triangling is very comfortable for me. It probably has to do. Not that I, I think Freud was kind of, people have been talking about Freud, and for a while, I suppose, saying his ideas are kind of, some of his ideas are not only are not accurate, but were actually created were actually things he thought of to try to excuse how much sexual abuse there was going on in people's homes. But I think just in terms of a general like social dynamic, I really was very isolated with my parents for a long time. I mean, where we lived out in Vermont, there really were not a lot of adults that they spent time with. I very rarely remember them having people come over to spend time with them. I mean, a few times my dad had friends over, but I almost individually remember those times. And my mom, I don't think my mother ever had a female friend over to the house. Ever. I'm sure that she didn't. I literally do not remember one time in my entire childhood my mother ever had a friend over. And they were incredibly traumatized, going through a lot. And I think in some ways they tried to redirect their emotional capacity, such as was left in terms of how tired they were and how poor they were and what they had been through, towards trying to be, towards me, to try to be good parents. There were things that they screwed up, but we were all very, very, I think, emotionally, someone described as being enmeshed. The first time I was in the hospital, a doctor said, your family seems to be kind of enmeshed, where it's like, it's all three of us sort of work, even that, and that was only a few years later. So, but first almost 13 years of my life, where that was my home life. So I'm kind of used to being in an intense situation, which is basically I'm sort of the third party in some sort of in this. I think it's probably just comfortable for me in a way that it may not. I don't know how someone else who is in this situation, my situation, like in terms of being stalked and being invaded and having cameras in my house, I don't know how someone who had a stronger, kind of better past in terms of dealing with just dating relationships would be coping with this. I mean, because it wasn't just them, because I actually did all right. You know, I did all right before I was in the hospital, and then after that, I mean, I was just so bludgeoned. I was just so bludgeoned by the drugs and by people really not understanding me and people having no respect for my judgment, and, you know, just therapist after therapist fucking up my ability to relate to people. But that had a lot to do with getting screwed up about relationships and not being able to correct the things that you know, my parents role modeled badly for me, and just not being able to live my life. And so there's a lot, you know, I had my boundaries broken down repeatedly by therapists. So I was frequently staying in situations that I already had a gut sense were bad for me, and then I would stay in them longer, and then the guys would take off anyway, and then I would get blamed for that. I mean, it was just on and on and on. So I haven't had a very little in my life in terms of anything that was long term has been positive, really, in terms of getting closer. Casually in terms of being able to talk to people, I'm actually all right at that. But once it's become something where it's like, it's just kind of a long story. But anyway, I think, you know, I mean, I'm stuck with, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do otherwise. To say that there's been an emotional dependency, well, yeah, I mean, I do not have the freedom to create an emotional interdependency in a normal way, in normal dating situations. It's just not there for me. But I think the industry is very geared towards blaming me, just wants to blame me. You know, just wants to blame me for other people's crimes, right? And of course you don't see anything there. You don't see anything there. You Google Tom Holland, you don't see anything there like he's been off and on in some sort of emotional flirtation type, whatever the thing is, with, you know, somebody else for 2 years plus other women along the way, right? Because the whole point is about protecting his image. And so I think perhaps, you know, people who have done this, he and other people who have done this, really have a skewed idea of it, really think their own behavior is fine, really are used to blaming me, take no responsibility for their behavior in any way whatsoever, right? Are just, you know, and yet when they get bored, they still gravitate back to me because it's a safe place to be like, I'm going to work out my boredom, or I'm going to work out a conflict, or I just feel like knowing what Lena's up to today, right? Or I'm feeling more generous toward her today. Meanwhile, she's been sitting there like simmering in resentment about the fact that the camera's still in there in her place. If, you know, I'm going to have a pleasant interaction with her, I'm going to have an angry interaction with her, and somehow that's going to create some other dynamic in the relationship I'm already in. But in the end, everything gets blamed on me, Lena. Everything gets blamed on me. You don't see it, and there's zero, absolutely nothing out there, you know, from their own hype to suggest that there's they are anything other than fabulous people. Don't believe your own hype. I don't remember who first said that. It's probably just, you know, but that was something that they used to say years and years ago. Don't believe your own hype. They don't say it anymore. Nobody says it anymore. And you can just extrapolate that dynamic to everybody else who has done this, everybody else who's doing it now. There's nothing out there about Timothy Chalamet, you know, there's nothing out there besides Wonka this, Wonka that, you know. It's like, okay, well, you know, and right now I feel like I've said all there is to say about that. There's other shit going on, so to do the best I can with it. This industry's going to change or it's not. It's going to be confronted or it's not. It's some kind of fucking just horror show going on, a complete fucking horror movie going on forever. So again, you know, since they say you have no control over what other people do, you only have control over what you do. So it's like, all right, well, if I'm really going to separate from this, really not going to do this anymore, again, I still don't know what I'm going to do. I mean, other people, when they are not able to be in relationships or are not free to be dating, I think generally tend to do things like watch movies or watch TV shows and kind of have some sort of vicarious experience from that. And I can't do that either, because the people who are in them, the shows are watching me before I'm watching them. The shows are watching me taking things from my life, either